A couple months ago, I left my high-paying job at Amazon for my mental health. Fast forward to now, I'm already back and working again at Amazon. In this video, I like to share the top 6 key reflections that I've had while I was away from my work. And the last one is something that I totally did not expect. Hi everyone, my name is April and I'm currently a 25-year-old software engineer living in Seattle. This video is going to be more of a yappy video. I kind of want to just use this video as a podcast episode where I just spill my thoughts on you about the key learnings that I've reflected, because I believe that this lesson will resonate to someone out there. The first lesson that I've learned is that sunk cost is a very scary thing. When I first joined my current position at Amazon, I really enjoyed the scope, the impact we have, and most importantly, the team dynamic and my manager. When I first had a one-on-one with one of the people on my team, he explicitly told me that my manager back then was a very, very good manager. I should be grateful and not take it for granted. I did understand that and I was grateful for that, but I didn't expect that he would leave us after a year and I should have left back then. But a couple thoughts occurred to me. Like, even though my manager left, the team is still good, and also because I'm a year in and promotion is in sight and I should just keep on staying at this team for a potential promotion down the line. Because of a myriad of those reasons, I decided to stay, and that is one decision that I regretted so much now, because at that point I fell into the sunk cost fallacy, thinking that I've already persevered this long, if I stay longer something will come out of it. But now, a year and a half later, our team dynamic has gotten better since the worst time, but at the same time I feel like it's too late for me to leave now because I still didn't get promoted. And now, with the 2.5 years of experience, I kind of got put into the situation where I have to stick it through to get the promotion before I can leave. I wasn't able to connect the dots and understand how sunk cost has played a role in my career journey until I started taking a medical leave when I was severely burnt out. And that's when things started to make sense for me. So I thought it would be a good time to also ask you, what is the situation where you have stayed for too long because you're too scared to leave? Please let me know in the comments below. But let's move to the second reflection, which is the subtle art of communication. Throughout my life, I've always been a people pleaser, and because of a myriad of experiences when I was a kid that I'm not gonna talk about in this video for the sake of time, I've become really scared to voice my opinions, disagree with people, and just speak up in general, which means I didn't have the opportunity to hone in on my skills of communication. Throughout college, there are team assignments, but I don't really disagree with other people. If someone else had a strong opinion, I would just be like, okay, we can have it your way. I never disagree. And I'm also aware that I'm not the best person at communicating in general because I am too scared of external feedback. So I shut myself up and just try to do things by myself. But throughout my medical leave, one thing I really wanted to do was to hire an editor, which he did the rough cut of this video. So hi editor, if you're watching this. In the start of any partnership, it is quite a journey to get on the same page, especially when I have a very strong opinion on how I want my video to turn out. So because of that, I really had to hone in on the skills on how to give valid feedback that moves things forward and just make sure that we are on the same page. And because of that experience, it actually made me realize that some of the ways of communication that I was doing with my team before I started taking medical leave was just not the most efficient. But I couldn't tell at the moment because I was very burnt out and I was very scared of people disagreeing with me. And because of that, I would just hide things and keep things to myself. Sometimes it just doesn't really solve the problem. So it took my medical leave for me to understand how important it is to hone in on the skills of a communication and the importance of giving and receiving constructive feedback. And it is definitely something that I'm still working on a lot right now. My third reflection is something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. It is the fact that art is a business. Maybe the reason that people don't really talk about it is because it's really obvious, but given my background, I graduated from a liberal arts college, and throughout my college, I participated in a lot of theater programs where we are given the fun to do whatever we want. We are not selling tickets for profit, and because of that, we always choose some of the most literary impactful things as the play that we're doing for our club. And because we solely rely on grants and club funds, all of our admissions are free, we never had to worry about whether we can make a profit because we just don't. I carry my passion for theater all the way until now. So during my medical leave, I also spent a lot of time trying to understand what would my future look like if I spent more time doing theater. theater. I went to a couple seminars where we talk about different topics in theater, targeting aspiring theater professionals. Through that series of seminar, which I think I documented in one of my vlogs, I was able to realize that people are struggling because the works that we choose to do simply just don't really generate an income. And it is pretty mind-blowing for me to realize that there's this whole spectrum from struggling artists who's trying to do the purest form of arts, and there's this other end of the spectrum where Broadway and Hollywood sits. They're extremely revenue generating and people would pay a lot of money to see them. It is until that point that I realized that art is a business. I love to watch the indie films. I love to watch traditional classical plays. And I used to believe that people should pay more attention to those instead of Hollywood, Marvel, Star Wars, I don't even know. But my perspective has really changed on this topic during my medical leave when I realized that the reason that people love Broadway and Marvel is that it solves a problem. It is what people want to watch. The filmmakers are simply doing what people want. And it is a free market. People like that over classical plays. And that is totally okay. In fact, it really makes sense to do that. Sorry, this section is going really long at this point, but there's something else that I really wanted to talk about. There is this trend of short form drama happening in China, and people who's in the business of this makes a lot of money. And I think it's also starting to pick up in the States as well, as I see a couple of those ads on TikTok. For example, I'm currently on IMDb, and here are some of the most trending short form drama. Billionaire CEO's Obsession, Love by Contract, Will You Be My Love Again, Fated Deal with the Mafia King, Bound to the Bastard Billionaire, things like that. And the topic of short form drama tend to be on the lines of being the underdog, proving all the haters wrong, getting revenge on the people who's wronged you in the past, and stuff like that. There's a lot of backlash in China from people who value the traditional film style, and people just really shit on the short drama because it is seen as being dumb. But in reality, the reason that people can make so much money from it is that somewhere in the world, people would pay for this. And these short form series actually satisfy the emotional demands of some of the people out there in the world. And that is why they're so profitable. And that makes sense. That is something that really humbles me when I start to realize that art is a business. So when people don't pay for my art or just any kind of art in general, it is important for me to reflect on why aren't people paying? What do they want? Instead of thinking that no one understands me, if that makes sense. Anyways, I totally didn't expect myself to ramble for that long for that segment, but I also wanted to announce a couple of things. First of all, if any of you has seen my video documenting my journey of taking a medical leave from Amazon, you probably know that I did that as episode 1 of my monthly series, My Year of Messing Up. The reason that I started that series is because I wanted to use it as a space to document the little life experiences that I have and try to see what will happen by the end of the year. But my announcement is that I will be killing my baby. My year of messing up. And this is in fact the last episode. I totally did not expect that it would happen this early, but I really had a lot of thought and consideration into it, and I believe it is for the best for a couple of reasons. The first one is simple. While my first episode was pretty successful, I'm starting to lose audience on episodes 2 and 3, but more importantly, I also feel less and less calling to make those videos because I kind of just realized that my life is not a drama. Even though I do feel that my life is pretty chaotic and dramatic at times, I cannot manufacture something that dramatic every single month for the episode. And I don't think that is my intention of starting the series, which is why I am transitioning to something a little bit more gentle, both on myself and on you guys as well. So this is actually also a pilot episode for my new series that I'm trying to test out, which is still a monthly format. And I'm currently titling it My Monthly Letters. In my monthly letters format, I'll talk about one topic that really comes to my mind and spend the whole video talking about it in depth. You can kind of see it as a monthly podcast episode where I'm just trying to let out some raw emotions, raw learnings, and make it a little bit more yappy. One thing I started to feel like I'm losing connection with for my year of messing up is that I plan too many segments in the video, which becomes a little bit repetitive. So I'm just gonna keep it to one segment for this series, which is an intermission where I share some of my monthly favorites, books, movies, restaurants, or purchases. By the way, if you're enjoying this episode so far, make sure to subscribe to my channel so the algorithm can push my new series to you every single month. But let's get started with this episode's intermission. This month, I wanted to share with you one book and two movies. The book that I wanted to talk about is called The Dip. It's a very short pamphlet about how for everything great that you want to achieve in life, there is a dip, and you only get to achieve the thing once you get through the dip. It then talks about when to quit, when you should persevere, and when you shouldn't even start in the first place. Even though it's only a couple of pages, this book really hit hard because I am navigating a couple of choices where I'm not ready to share yet, but this book really helps me build the foundational framework in which I can make my decision off of. Other than this book, I also read two fiction. One is a mystery novel and the other is a romance novel, but I didn't like them, so I'm not gonna mention them in this video. But if you have read any novels that you really enjoyed lately, please let me know in the comment section below because I am in desperate need of some book recommendations. Anyways, let's go to the movies. December through January was the month of literary films as we're heading towards the Oscar season, so I have two literary movies that I want to press to your hands. The first one is called Eleanor the Great. I've been pretty excited about this movie because I know that it is Scarlett Johansson's directorial debut, so I was really excited and I hosted a movie night with strangers at my place. I really enjoyed the movie because it centers on the stories that we choose to tell and not to tell, and also centers on the theme of human connection. So I thought it's a really warm, whimsical, but also funny movie to watch. The second one that I really enjoyed is Hamnet. I knew it was a movie about Shakespeare. While I'm not an avid fan of Shakespeare, I chose to watch this movie because I found out that it was directed by a Chinese lady, Chloe Zhao. So I brought my mom to the movie theaters with me. We were both pretty confused when it got to the part where they were talking about Hamlet because we didn't know what Hamlet was about. But I think not knowing that doesn't really affect how this movie is objectively, because her way of cinematography and storytelling is just so good. And I think the female lead of the movie, Jessie Buckley, her acting is also exceptional. I could feel for her throughout the entire movie. I would highly recommend it. There is a reason that I recommended these movies to you because they both centers on human connection, whether it's the connection between a 90-year-old lady and a college student, or the connection between William Shakespeare and Agnes Shakespeare. I think these two movies also help me reflect on the importance and some of the intricacies of human connection while I was away. And we'll get into that in the second portion of my reflection. Starting from my fourth lesson, the high achiever trap. Throughout my life, I realized that I'm on this never-ending journey to achieve things. Whenever I reached one milestone, the goalpost always moves to the next one and then the next one. And I feel like I'm on this never-ending journey to find happiness through achievement because I just don't know when it's enough. For example, I remember there was a point in my life where all I wanted was to get into a good college, and I did. So I decided to get a high-paying job. In junior year, I grinded so hard to land my internship in Amazon, which became my full-time job. But now that I'm working at Amazon, somehow I just feel like it's not enough. I want to do YouTube, I want to do theater, I want to be able to make money doing arts. And now I'm spending a lot of time grinding on YouTube, grinding on theater. I just don't feel enough. During my medical leave, I am supposed to be resting and recovering from burnout, but instead I actually gave myself so much work. This is not intentional, but something that just happened to be the byproduct of having an extended amount of break. I started posting weekly on YouTube, joined not one, not two, but 3 different theater productions as lighting designers, traveled in Europe and Africa, and moved into a new apartment. I feel like what I really need in life right now is probably the ability to give myself grace, and some part of me just also couldn't let myself to do that. And that is something that I'm still trying to figure out. My fifth reflection is that you're not alone. I also talked about this in one of my vlogs when I was moving out of my apartment. It was around November, and my friend invited me to a Friendsgiving. And at that Friendsgiving dinner, I actually met my coworker. At that point, I was already 2 months into my medical leave. I have no idea on where my team was heading towards. So that meeting was actually pretty interesting because we got to talk a lot about what is going on with my team. What I was feeling in my head that got me burnt out before I started taking a medical leave is actually something that other people also resonate with. Before taking a medical leave, I feel so bad about myself, about how I'm not able to regulate my stress. And I kept my decision to myself until about a month into my medical leave when I started telling people that I'm actually not working. By telling people that, I actually met a lot more people who was also taking a leave. And it made me realize that oftentimes we as human beings have a pretty much shared experience, but we're too scared to talk about it because we think we're the only one experiencing it. Throughout my medical leave, I started to realize that these feelings that makes us feel so alone, so isolated, actually serves as a purpose for us to bond together instead of for us to segregate. And that is something that I'm still navigating, because my sixth lesson is that despite knowing that lesson, I still feel like sometimes I live in the in-between. While I did talk about the fact that I received overwhelmingly positive feedback from taking a medical leave from Amazon, the part that I'm actually working on YouTube, I kept totally to myself. I couldn't summon up the courage to tell people about this because, first of all, I don't feel like I've made it so far. The reason that I wanted to be on YouTube is something that not a lot of people around can understand. In fact, I've tried telling this to others. I summoned up the courage to tell my friends that I'm really busy recently, especially with a lot of work stuff to do. I have to manage working out, but on top of that, I also have to work on YouTube for 20 hours a week. So that's why I cannot hang out with you. And that is when I was met with the kind of dismissive attitude of, maybe you can pause making videos for a while because that sounds like the least important thing on your plate. And it is those interactions where I just slowly stopped sharing the status of my YouTube channel with those around me, and I started to keep it more and more to myself. For example, last weekend I actually had brunch with a friend. It was MLK's Day, so we had the whole day off, but I was really late on posting a video. Even though I worked 10 hours straight to try to finish the video before brunch, I just didn't get a chance to finish it. So that is why when I went to brunch, I was thinking, what should I talk about? What are some of my updates besides YouTube, because I'm not supposed to talk about YouTube. And that's when it hit me that there's not much of an update, because I basically worked my day job and then worked on YouTube and then worked my day job and YouTube. I don't really have too much life to talk about, not because I'm not living life, but because I have to hide such a significant portion of how I spend my life with others, and it makes me feel a little bit invisible. While we're eating brunch, my friend asked me, what is my plan for the rest of the day? In my mind, I was thinking that I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna work really hard on my edit, and I'm gonna post my video. But because we're not supposed to talk about it, I told her that I am just gonna chill for the rest of the day. Nothing much planned, but that was not the case. So I asked her, what about you? And she told me that she's gonna prepare for the LSAT and she's going on a study session with a friend at a cafe. And to that, I actually feel a little bit jealous, because I wish that my grind right now is as simple as the LSAT to tell people out loud. I'd imagine if you tell any single person that you're preparing for the LSAT, people would actually respect you for taking so much time out of your life to prepare for an exam. And I wish that the words of I am spending the rest of the day grinding on YouTube is as easy to say out loud as that. But I also think if that is the case, maybe making videos won't be as enticing to me as now. So yeah, it is a topic that I'm still navigating, but I guess on a lighter note, I think the internet is able to help bring me connection with like-minded people. So if you watched to this part of the video and you feel connected, it would be super helpful if you could comment below on something that you didn't quite actively keep it as a secret, but just didn't tell people because you think others wouldn't understand. And I understand that it is a very scary thing to open up. So if you don't want to share it in the comments, feel free to also email me or send me a DM on my Instagram account. I just want to understand you better. And with that, if you haven't checked out the video on why I left my job at Amazon in the first place, make sure to check it out over here, and I'll see you next week. Bye.